Readiness on TMI this Thursday morning. I'm joined by two guests. From my immediate left is a notable scholar, no other person than Dr. Odigwe Owokocha, the senior lecturer at the Department of History and International Studies, University of Benin. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me on the program too.
I will also have next to him Bishop Austin Ibasa, an articulate public affairs commentator, joining us to beat this conversation into context of the program this morning. Thank you too for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Let me begin with Dr. Owokocha. I can't be sure if you voted 2 Saturdays ago. I'm just saying that on the lighter note. But quite frankly, you've been in this country. You've witnessed elections. You've seen how the elections have had to be postponed for a wide range of reasons. These, we are told, has serious implications for the electoral process. What are your sentiments about these developments?
Postponement of elections?
Elections and the entire process, basically.
Well, I think we're driving backwards. And that's not what we need as a people, as a country. As people desirous of development and going forward, I think our elections are becoming funny. This very last election, to me, that's my opinion, was a downgrade on we had 4 years ago. And it portends some danger for our development. Not just in terms of a democratically organized society, but in terms of the way people perceive us. And the way people perceive us internationally and domestically, the way we perceive ourselves is important, because it has to do with whether we're ready to go forward or go backwards. If you don't get it right, if you keep going backwards every time you have a process, then it portends some danger for the future.
Let's look at this election, the one that's in front of us now. A lot of persons are apprehensive that some of the issues that played out almost 2 weeks ago are likely going to rear their heads again. Does that give you any concern?
Yes, it does, really, because I think it's going to be worse because it's closer to the people. Like they say, all politics are local, but when it comes to governing those who will govern you, or electing those who will govern you domestically, if you like, in quotes now, it's going to be worse. If you had violence before now, it may just get worse, because you're going to elect people who are closer, to use that word. And like I said before, it's a dangerous thing, and I don't know where it's going to take us. It's dangerous, particularly when you look at it against the background that a lot of young people are coming up. Right. And models are being established that tend to give the impression that that is the way it should be. You know, violence, all kinds of things that need not be, are being thrown up. And it remains to be asked, why are we doing all this? Do you force a people to govern them? Do you force people to actually govern them? What is wrong with us? What is happening to us as a people? Where are we taking ourselves to?
Those are questions we should be asking. Let me allow Bishop Ibasa to lend his voice to this one. A lot of persons say we should not be surprised when we see all of these ugly trends around our political process. They say that's the reason it's called murky waters. Do you share that opinion?
Well, I don't believe that we have to make what we feel that is good to be evil. Politics in itself is not bad, and like my learned brother have said, we have gone backward in what has happened recently. And it is not, we see politics in other climes. Why should we identify ourselves that our own must be bad, our own must be worse, and we are not ready to improve? And I give you what you see now that played out a few weeks ago was a predetermined situation. And I built a foundation. The appointment of the INEC chairman was a premeditated arrangement for what happened 2 weeks ago. The inability of the president not to sign the electoral bill is a predetermined. What you saw 2 weeks ago it has been arranged. That was why all the effort put into the electoral This is my opinion.
And we have to base your opinion on facts that are verifiable and authentic.
Okay, I give you an example that all the people that participated in the electoral reform and what they did in National Assembly,
right.
The party in power was part of it. They had their representative there. All of them contributed, but at the 11th hour, it was not signed. Let me give you an example. In the days of President Yaradua, he came into power and he said the election that brought me to power was full of irregularities. He made a broadcast after that.
Have we addressed those irregularities years down the line?
That is where I'm going. The man addressed it. If you take your mind back, you saw that the man set up a committee headed by former Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Wade.
Right.
And the prominent people were put into that committee and they made recommendations. And the government of the day at that time hit the ground running by effecting. It was through those recommendations we came to Kadrida. It was through those recommendations we were able to see that election matter must be done within a stipulated time.
Sorry, I'm going to have to halt you a little so you can hold your thoughts. We're going to be joined by a third guest on the program so we can expand the narrative on TMI this morning. Do stay with us.
TMI, every opinion counts.
I'm joined by Solomon Yogbe. He's a public affairs commentator. Thank you for making our time to come.
Yeah, this morning.
I'm going to allow you to jump in on the conversation very soon. But Bishop Igbasa was trying to establish a point a while ago.
Yeah.
You were talking about all of the process, the electoral process.
Yes. I take your mind back to when late President Yaradua came into power, the election that was conducted by Professor.
About the committee that was set up.
The committee was set up, and they made some recommendations.
Right.
In fact, that was the first thing late Yaradua did. After that broadcast, he set up the committee and they hit the ground running and they came with their report. And immediately their report was implemented. When Dr. Jonathan came on board, they continued from there. We had the voters card from there. We have the period of education of all electoral matter that it has to go within a stipulated period that it will not make someone to be in power illegally for like 1.5 hours, 1.5 years, and you now remove the person. Then we are back again to the same track. So all these things were fine-tuned. And I thought there's a build-up after what we saw in 2015. How many blood was shed in 2015 presidential election? I want to take your mind back. How many persons were killed? How many people were killed in 2015? But take your mind back on what happened a few weeks ago. The number of persons that died in the name of election. Now, what happened eventually? All the resources put together to put the Electoral Act to that level where it needs to be signed. And it was returned 4th time. And you know, this one goes with so much money, so much intelligence, and so much time put into it. If this has been signed, some of these things you saw will have not really repeated itself, because when we're going to collect from that particular spot and we send the result from there, all those professors that were held captive and they were made to announce the result, and they were even say they announced under duress. Those things will have not happened, because right from that place, everything will have been biometrically done by all the agents of the party. Will biometrically put their signature, and we will send the result from there to the collation center. That also the state headquarters will have a copy of it. The INEC headquarters will have a copy of it. A server where every person all over the world can go in and collect the result of election will have been done. So what I say to you is that what happened now was predetermined. And if you look at INEC itself, the regulation that INEC put, the guideline for themselves, they also disobey it. And you ask yourself, why will INEC set up a guideline and regulation for themselves, and the day of election, they themselves disobey their own regulation?
Let me take you up on the issue of the president not assenting to the proposed Electoral Act amendments. There were reasons. He gave reasons every time it was returned. Every time he held back assent, he gave reasons for that. That said, the idea of having a process that is electronic as far as the electoral process is concerned, some people have argued that if we are not fully digitized or automated, then we are having all of these challenges. It's going to be a bit more protracted by the time you introduce technology.
It is not going to. Now, let's look at it. In those days, you see ballot snatching, you see killing, all kinds of things. But when card reader came, to some extent, you saw that as soon as you are accredited, if biometrically, when you are accredited, you stand by.
Yes.
Yes. Now, nobody can come and start bringing a list of set of people. But we still see that today, even that smart card reader is not even recognized by our law as of today. And those are things that were put into this electoral act.
And some people have argued that issue will be challenged in courts going forward.
It will be challenged, and that is why you see that they create this allowance there, so that by the time these loopholes are created,
we say they, who they now?
The powers that be. I want to say to you that the Electoral Act and all the processes of card readers stop a lot of things, and that was why, as you see in 2015, I didn't say there was no fraud in the election of 2015. I didn't say that there were no underage voting and some things, but I could tell you that down the south, most of these things were regulated. It was regulated by card reader. Now, when the issue of card reader now got to Supreme Court, and it is not recognized by the law, and now we are supposed to consolidate what we had before, where everything will be digitalized, and you don't need logistic. Right from the word where you cast your vote, it will be sent digitally. It will not be tampered with. We have issue of Miracle Center in JAMB. Nobody was arrested. The government in power decided to make it medically driven. Today, you don't have Chinyere writing on behalf of Rebecca. Again, in Miracle Center, nobody was arrested. Technology arrests them. So when you want to change a system and you want it to function, you will see that it is by technology. When something is technologically driven, it doesn't mean that it is 100% perfect, but it will reduce to 85% all the things you are seeing that are happening right now. We watch what was happening all around. Now people are incident from here and there. It's going on over the place. When we get to court and tribunal, you see that most election will be turned upside down in the name of this loophole that are created.
So let me bring you in at this point now. A lot of persons have said we have to blame politicians for all of the anomalies we've come to find with our electoral process. Can that be said to be true?
Yes. Politicians have a very major role to play, whether the positive electoral process or the negative electoral process. Don't forget, when you say INEC, and INEC misdemeanor, if you like, you say INEC has done this, INEC has done that. They didn't wake up one morning and start doing it. Of course, they have regulations, they have rules. Look at the situation of the professor who came online. I was saying recounting his ordeal. You know, how he had to, first of all, think of his life. Who did that? The politicians, because they needed to get there. So when you see these problems coming up, yes, politicians have a big role to play. You see, I tell people, when they say youths are the problem, they do election violence, I say they are also as much a victim. You understand? People may not understand what I mean by that. There are certain things I do not want to agree with Bishop when he mentioned, but there are a few too that I think I want to agree with him. Because if you look at it, I keep saying sometimes that poverty seems to be created by governments with the bid of getting people vulnerable to be used during election period. How is that possible? You know the problems of Nigeria. When you are coming on board, doing your campaigns, you begin to mention them. You begin to, enlist the problems and give proper solutions, not like calculating it. You already know it, and the people are meant to believe that when you come, you are going to make a difference. And when you come, you are going to hold back those solutions until the 11th hour you begin to release them in piecemeal. And in the end, what happens? People become vulnerable. Why are politicians still able to get votes from people by way of buying votes? It's because the people are vulnerable, they don't have money. The man who is living, a little bit above poverty line will not be bothered whether you are going to give him X thousand or whatever. But because people are still living far below poverty line, they are very much vulnerable when it comes to election period. You understand? And party A shares X money, and party B share Y money, and highest bidder gets it. So in the end, let me tell you, I was passing through Abuja Okene Road shortly before the last general elections, and I said, wow, electionary year is good though. I wish they can be doing election every year, because you can understand that the road construction has been fast-tracked. Work is ongoing. Why? It's a political arrangement just to entice the people and get them coming to support them. That's my feeling, and it ought not to be like that. Now somebody asks, I was watching television one day, somebody asked, what is a politician doing in the marketplace during election period? Does that not amount to vote buying? And he
depending on what he was doing, was he shopping?
Wait, and yes, that took me back. He said, why didn't he do what he was doing now some 3 years ago?
What was he doing?
Oh, he was doing traders' money.
Okay.
And
which has become controversial, by the way.
you know, so obviously, by the time he finished his analysis, I tend to agree with him that, oh, of course, why are you doing it now close to elections? Why didn't you do it far beyond before this
much earlier
before this election coming? So the point I'm making here is that when you talk about elections, when you talk about rigging, when you talk about sincerity, when you talk about having a peaceful election, politicians have a lot to play. It is not you and I who goes out there on election day to go do ballot box snatching, ballot box stuffing and all that. It is those who have been paid by the politicians who goes on or go ahead trying to ensure that they do their master's bidding.
Let me take you about something you just mentioned in passing when you talked about the trader money issue. A lot of persons have had to criticize the vice president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, that he should have known enough that it was ill-timed bringing that initiative to the marketplace, looking at the timing in particular. But then again, we seem to live in a country where you do the wrong things long enough, they become normal, they even become the standard, they become culture. Some persons have said the Shopee program under former President Dr. Goodluck Jonathan also spilled into election period in 2015, that the idea was to also win the hearts of voters in good enough time. Isn't that a case of just doing the wrong things culturally, and then for those it favors, they are comfortable with it?
Somebody mentions to me, why are these politicians complaining this time? Didn't this happen in President Goodluck Jonathan's time? Didn't B happen in President Goodluck Jonathan's time? Doesn't what happen in President Goodluck Jonathan's time? And I asked him, did Nigerians support President Goodluck Jonathan when it got to elections?
But it depends on the categories of Nigerians. For those who were beneficiaries.
No, look at it.
They not only supported, they sang about it.
No, look at it. What was the end results? People were tired, seemingly, of what we perceived or saw as massive corruption and looting. And people needed a change. And so that gave birth to the, if you like, change matter. And then because people just needed to leave that, and now you have come with all the songs that you have sang, you are doing similar things that made people said we didn't want this, and you are using that as an excuse because Peter did it, Paul should do it. That goes back to what you have said, that when the people do wrongs for too long a time, it becomes almost the norm. It doesn't make it right that you continue to do what is wrong, and because over time you have done it like 1,000 times and people now see it, just like it is not a normal thing for you not to have light, you know, that's having electricity in your house. But it has become a normal norm that when you have light for 6 hours straight, you are curious, you are wondering if something happened. You understand? Whereas if you don't have light for 6 hours, you are supposed to be saying what is wrong. But when you don't have light for 6 hours, you feel it's a normal thing. Then when electricity is stored and you have it for 6 straight hours, you begin to wonder if it is normal. That's the scenario you have just painted. And does that make it right? Whereas at the end of the month, you will be sent a bill for services not rendered. That has become the Nigerian problem. Until politicians realize that Nigerians are waking up. Like he said, unfortunately, that's why I said to an extent I agree with him, and to another extent I do not want to agree with him. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, Nigeria judging by the last elections has gone several paces back.
Okay, we're going to do that assessment
on electoral matters.
Okay, before we wrap it up on this discussion, we're going to do that. But let me come to Dr. Wonkwocha now. A lot of persons have pointed to the, if you will, proliferation of political parties. has been a contributory factor to the protracted nature of electoral process, particularly given the developments we have come to see with the 2019 general election. Is that supposed to be a problem?
Well, the number of political parties we have in the polity shouldn't be a problem, and it's not the problem. It's not a problem because political parties are set up to do what you call contestation, to contest for power.
Okay.
So if you have 200 political parties, it doesn't hurt the system.
But it increases the workload substantially, doesn't it?
The workload of the public or
on the part of the umpire, those who are actually elections.
That's why the umpire is established to superintend over elections. That's their job. The number of political parties shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Because it's about politics, and the contest for power should be something about belief, about values. It should be ideological. It should be that I want society to run like this. That's party A. Party B wants society to run this way. Party C wants it that way. Then let the society and the electorate, that is, decide whose values, whose ideas are best for society. And that is the whole idea of having more than 2, more than 3 political parties for contest, to open up the space.
Right.
That's the idea.
Let's talk about this next Saturday in particular. Do you see anything changing for the better, given where we had been almost 2 weeks ago?
Well, I'm not a prophet, really. But I must say that the statistics from last Saturday are not edifying.
Okay.
And I'll be shocked if worse things do not happen. I'll be shocked.
Sounds like you're pessimistic.
Yeah, from the statistics, from the figures we see, from the things we see. I'm a historian. And you can talk about the future based on what you have observed from the past and the present. And we're talking about last Saturday, and I voted. I know the kind of things I saw there. And for an election that is, in quotes, far away, now coming closer home, I'll be shocked. I don't pray for anything evil to happen to anybody. I don't pray for anything bad to happen to our society. But the statistics are not encouraging. I must say that.
Okay.
They're not encouraging.
Let's see how it turns out on Saturday. But let me allow Bishop Igbasan say something about this now. A lot of issues, crises, controversies within political parties. So analysts and watchers of this political space would say that political parties and politicians further complicates the job of INEC and those who are supposed to collaborate with them on the election front. Is that the position?
I feel that the INEC cannot do without the politician.
Okay.
They cannot do without the political party. And they cannot do without the electorate.
Right.
But I feel that it's like, you know, where you set a standard. I give you an example of late Professor Dora Akuili, when she was head of NAFDAC. The woman came and set a template, and today, up to this moment, nobody has been able that in the history of Nigeria, Americans send their own food department to come and even do a study under late Akuili. But after that time, what has happened? It's about leadership. When you see, until INEC is independently minded, in the history of INEC, this is the first time we're having an INEC coming from the same geopolitical zone with the sitting president. You look at
does that change anything?
No, it has to change something. What about the act that established it from time immemorial that says the political umpire must not come? We have seen it down the line. In the days of Obasanjo, we have late Justice Ephraim Apata, we have Dr. Ebed Gobadia. They were not Yoruba people. And the statistic is that you follow what the law says about it. In the days of Jonathan, somebody he has not met was appointed. Why should it be that somebody will be appointed? The law is every stage a situation where an umpire might be biased and might feel that, oh, this is my turn. Let me do it here. Let me do some few things. Let's take our mind back on what happened in Kano. What happened to the INEC rec and the wife and the children after that election was declared in 2015. Until today, has anybody been able to unravel what happened to that family? Because of one statement. So let's take our mind back. But if we want our nation to go forward, we must begin to look at issue of it's about leadership. If a leader is ready to do, I take you back to Professor Humphrey Nwosu in the days of Babangida. It was deadly, it was terrible. But the man said, I'm a professor, please, I've got to do what is right, and posterity will remember me. We are talking about that man today. The man stood his ground and said, I will go ahead and announce. Until we have leaders like that, people like Commander Wukwe, who were able to stand their ground and say, this postal system is not working. People who stand and put their life online, until we have such leadership. Now, I tell you, look at some of the INEC clerk. What to also resign when they saw some things that they felt is not even suiting to them, that they have the net to protect. But what happened? So we still have some few Nigerians who have the fear of God, who wants to do the best thing, who want to be independent minded. Until you have leadership, it's about leadership.
It's amazing when we talk about these things on the program like this, and we get to hear about how things were better back in the day, and we seem to be doing a downward spiral at this point. At what point did we actually, was the link broken?
Now, what I tell you is that it's about the leader. Now, when a leader wants to do something, in 2015, was there any instruction given to army to kill people, to be ruthless with anybody? Because there was a system, there was a country leader. And the leadership is saying, about anybody's blood is not what my ambition. It's about leadership.
But that statement by the president, there had been an issue of context about that statement on the one hand. On the other hand, the presidency had come to clarify that statement. That's one. Then number two, INEC chair, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, had also said clearly that anybody who committed infractions, especially as it had to do with the electoral process, will be dealt with based on the law. Because
not shut down at the site.
But the president never said anything.
The ruthless should be dealt with ruthlessly. And also it was confirmed by the chief of army staff.
But in a sense, can't the law be ruthless? In a sense.
The law cannot be ruthless. You cannot use illegality to make something legal. Now, if the law says somebody snatch a ballot and you go for 2 years imprisonment, if there are evidence, if the INEC is ready to do what is right, and they don't, is it not INEC people, are they not there when people are buying votes and they are snapping and showing people? We saw what happened. We talk about leadership. We talk about me. I can arrest doctor now, arrest his brother because he wants to make money available from his account for his campaign. But my friend can use Boulevard to bring money, and it is not an issue. Even when the election is 1 hour or 2 hours, it doesn't matter. That the law does not affect that, my friend. It's about leadership. Until we begin to see leaders that they say something and they do what they are saying. Until we see leaders, if the INEC chairman come around and call his rec and said, see, I am independent man, I want this thing done independently, go ahead. I could really call them and say, I'm an Igbo woman. I know my people are into this kind of thing, but I'm not related to anybody. In this NAFDAC, we are going to go by the law that established it, and everybody celebrated that till today, nobody has been able to. So, Akunyili was sold all over the country, so but she only called people and made the template and tell them, nobody should mention my name.
In some way, what you're saying is the elements that's missing is exemplary leadership.
Exemplary leadership.
Let's talk about the lineup for this election across this country. You have governorship and state house of assembly elections. Incidentally, the bulk of the people running are young people. Some persons have expressed the fear that could further fuel violence. Does that scare you?
No, it doesn't. You see, sometimes I look at when people talk about young persons being violent as giving a dog a bad name in order to hang it. Okay. And I do not also want to totally agree when you say there are young persons looking at the elections. Young persons have never been actually given.
Those running, not just looking, those running for positions.
House of Assembly.
Exactly, yes. A lot of them are young people. Some persons have the fear that
if you said some of them are young people, young persons. Okay, I think I prefer that young persons, not to say a lot of them, because by what we know and we see,
62.
Yeah, it doesn't really. So for me, it is not that. Like I had mentioned, it's about exemplary leadership.
Okay.
It's about setting the templates. It's about doing things right. It's about, look, I don't know why people do not want to say things the way they are. Why should the president come out and say, in the first instance, that whoever goes doing ballot box snatching and whatever, all of us, we know that is against the law. It's a crime,
right,
but should be dealt with ruthlessly. When the same law it's so much that if you are caught buying votes, you are also as capable as the man who goes there snatching ballot box. That the same law is also you are also as culpable as the man who goes snatching ballot box when you spend above your electoral campaign limits. No, on your own you are a sense. on the other side, they are criminals. Yes, he needed not emphasize. All he needed to do was that the security agencies should do the needful, but not as to the extent of issuing charge. But of course, the incident still happened all over. And for some of us, we looked at it like a way of deterring some while you allow some do some. But in any case, taking us back to whether young persons will make it more volatile. I tell you, in 2015 and 2016, in Edo State, for example, because 2015 was the general elections, 2016 was the Edo State elections, young persons removed violence from the streets by going to fight the war on the social media page. So don't always look at it from the negative side. For the first time in the history of Nigeria, electoral violence was reduced. But again, it's about a perception anyway, because some persons will say it was not as reduced, but for a lot of us, we are still alive. If you look at it, you can tell very clearly that electoral violence was drastically reduced between the 2015 general elections and the 2016 gubernatorial elections. Whereas before then, you will see, in fact, to some of us, we didn't actually foresee ballot box snatching as resurfacing in this 2019 general elections, because we thought we had left that era.
So it goes now.
But let me tell you,
it goes back to what Dr. said earlier.
No,
we're not making progress.
We are not. We are progressively retrogressing. Why? And I tell you, because younger persons were not allowed to participate in the last general election as it was in the last few weeks. Who were those piloting their affairs without sentiment? You are the other generations. And so they could not go to use the approach of the younger persons. The approach of the younger persons, because younger persons, there were more younger persons involved in the 2015 general elections than these 2019 general elections. The approach of the younger persons in the 2015 general elections was to you saw less posters on the streets.
Yes.
But you are seeing that it's surfacing now. Yes. I even saw posters being posted on the tar road.
Yes, sir.
But in the 2015 general elections and the 2016 gubernatorial elections, those posters were not there. They were on the pages of the social media, whether you call it Facebook, WhatsApp and all that. They were there, and people were busy arguing. All the fight that you have seen on the street were busy. You know, younger persons were busy fighting themselves on Twitter pages and WhatsApp pages. Now, that's to tell you that the young persons are not as evil-minded or as wicked as is being painted by the politicians. The younger persons are as much vulnerable and victim as the very general public. Because how do you see a scenario? A young man has left school 10 years, he does not have a job. There's no hope for even having one, because there are conditions. Having left school, having spent a minimum of 4 years in a tertiary institution, including a 1 year service, and now you are going to seek a job, get unemployment, and somebody is telling you you must bring a 5 years content experience. That is to say that your time you spent in the tertiary institution was nothing but a waste, but you are just doing academic abracadabra. That is what the Nigerian system have reduced the Nigerian graduates. And let us not talk about the educational system anyway, because a lot has happened. But come to think of it, when a man is there having nothing and is seeing a little that could survive him for a day, that is not to justify that crime is good or in any way better. But the man is vulnerable. The man seems to want to make himself available. I'll give you a scenario that played out during the elections. Somebody came to the field and was to vote for somebody of his choice. And I'm talking about the last elections, not this 2019 election. And the person got to the field. And at the point, because there was so much vote buying, and because there was some level of improvement, the politicians now got to understand that votes now count. So they could no longer rig as usual. They came out to the field. Of course, vote buying is been part of elections.
Yeah. One way or another.
But because it was no longer yielding in the old order, they decided to improve on it by coming out in the open to openly buy votes. And the person came to vote for instance party A On getting to the field, party B was paying higher. And the person walk up to a supposed leader, as it were, and say, excuse me, I have my family, and if we are able to get this, that will give us some good food at home. And that changed the dynamics. But the point I'm making is, we need to look at things from the positive angle. The youth are not the problems. If the youth are as involved as they were in 2015, I can assure you, the same violence you are saying now will be reduced, because they know how to drive this process even better. Because in the end, you saw that a night before the election result was announced, if you look at the collation, I'm not talking of the INEC collation center, but the situation room of the major political parties, as it were. There were young persons there who were driving their political propaganda online.
Okay, we're going to begin to wind down. Let me come to Dr. Nwokocha lastly. Just this week, a few days ago, there was a recommendation, or should I say suggestion, that INEC should be totally in charge of security as far as elections are concerned in this country. Do you see that as a right step in the right direction?
Well, before I answer that question, let me weigh in slightly on the issue of young people.
Right.
I'll get back to your question. I think our young people are victims. And they've been victimized by a system that doesn't think about the next day. That is what we have done to them. And now, because they are the weakest segment of our society, we turn around and blame them. That's what we're doing. I've been teaching students for the past 26 years. They're just victims. That's what they are. Having said that, sir, let me go on to the question. Now, if the law says that INEC should strictly be in charge of security matters, what it means is that INEC will request for security personnel and know how to deploy them. If that is what the law says, let the law take its course. Because a system where, like my friends here have been trying to say, a head of state comes out on TV, comes out to the public space to threaten Nigerians. I mean, it's not a narrative that encourages anything wonderful. Oh, if you do this, we'll shoot you. We have laws in this country. Let laws be allowed to operate in society. Laws are mechanisms for control deployed by governments. And when you deploy them, why go the extra mile to shoot? So if you ask me, if INEC is asked to deploy security staff or security personnel, we'll have less crisis, because you know who to hold responsible. What you find is that the security staff go there and act on their own without control.
Without recourse to INEC?
Without recourse to INEC.
Then the INEC is expected to be responsible.
Yeah, they invade collation centers, invade anywhere they like, do whatever they like. Yesterday, I watched a clip on TV where a soldier was slapping people publicly. I mean,
okay,
on election day.
Yes, we're going to have to continue to have this conversation up into the election. But just last words, Bishop Igbansa, for 30 seconds.
What I say is that to me, this election is very crucial. It's very close to the people, and it's an election. It's a deciding point. Like Edo State now, many other states where they are not having gubernatorial election
Alongside the general election.
Alongside general election.
Right.
The elections are prone to be very dangerous, because the sitting governors in those states, they know that their destiny is hanged on this election of Saturday, and they might go wide, they may do other things outside what they need to do. I appeal to people to know that this election decide the success of our state and other states where they are doing election. Youth, please don't be a victim. Be a victor as far as it is concerned, and let all of us go and do what is right and stand by what is right. We can change anything we want to change if we don't sit at home and leave our PVC at home and conclude that it will be done in the favor of A or B.
Okay, I think that wraps it up on this conversation. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program. Solomon Idiogbe, a public affairs commentator, and Dr. Odigwe. I was going to Nwokocha, yes, I was going to say Wachuku. All right, thank you for coming as well. We appreciate that. And of course, Bishop Austin Igbansa, both of them, all three of them, they had to beat the traffic on local stretch of the road this morning just to ensure they came to join us for this discussion. We appreciate your time with us, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And that's the end of this conversation.
you.